Hey everybody, I'm going to shoot some documentation of how I am putting my pond together. Hopefully we'll do this step by step, and at the end of all this we'll put this together into one comprehensive video. So here's a good place to start. You didn't really need to start with my supplies, but this is more or less my first stage. I used 2x10s. I built a basic 2x10 rectangle. I put a bead of silicone number 2 all the way around the top of the rectangle. I then laid this sheet of plywood on top of that and then ran screws in it all the way around so that I got a nice oozing bead of silicone coming out from where I'd screwed the bottom on. I then flipped that over and that became the bottom here, with this being the first segment of the pond. I then built a second box, or a second rectangle, out of 2x10s. Again, I laid a bead of silicone all the way around the edge, and then I set this second rectangle down on top of the first one, and then of course I went back and I resealed all of the seams and everything. I'm not so worried about it being watertight. I'm using the silicone as more of a glue than I am anything else. And so what I did to sort of secure the sides together was I took thin strips of plywood, completely covered the front side of them with silicone, stuck them to it, and then ran a whole bunch of screws in. And so that is basically locking these two pieces together over there. It's 19 inches total depth from the floor to the rim, so I figure the maximum amount of water I'll ever keep in this will be 18 inches, probably more like 16 inches. But at 18 inches of depth, I'm not looking at a huge amount of water pressure, and I really think that this structure alone will be able to hold the amount of water that I'm talking about putting in here. As I'm filling it up and we find out if it bows or if it's making creaking, cracking noises or something, I can always make some further adjustments later on down the line. But right now I think this is going to work, and so I'm going to move forward with starting to get the liner put in there. I'm also going to add some bracing later, but you'll see what that is once we get to that step. So let me get working on the liner, and that will be the next phase of this project. Alright, that was rough, but it was not as rough as I was expecting it to be. So we've got it in there just sort of roughed in, no pun intended. I did cut some of the extra off of this end to make it a little easier to work with. I've got a lot excess over on this side I still need to cut off, but I want to wait until I'm done. I'm not making any more cuts until I know exactly what we've got going on. I want the water pressure to push the liner down into all the corners or wherever it's going to be. And once I'm comfortable with it being in there, I'm secure that it's not going to leak or the wood's not going to come apart, we can go around and we can start trimming the liner. I think I'm going to just trim it pretty much right to the edge. I might fold it over and then use little tack nails and tack it to the edge or something like that. But I'm not going to loop it all the way down and go down the sides and tack it to the outside. This is a really thick liner. It was really difficult to work with. Again, it's almost like folding thin plastic as opposed to like a soft rubber. So it should be good to go. I know there's no possible way a fish's fin or anything like that is going to puncture it. I can't imagine what would get in there and puncture it, so I'm not too concerned about anything once we make sure that the woodwork doesn't come apart as we get the water in there. So there you go. There's the next stage. I will show you once we get the liner all trimmed down and we get the braces put on the corners, and once we've done that, we will be pretty much ready to start setting up the water circulation and the filter pump and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get some fish in there real soon. And there's the completed project. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And we'll go over it and talk about some of the details. You already saw the basic construction of it. We haven't really had any issues. I do have one little spot on the far corner up here that has a little bit of moisture on the outside of the wood, and I have not exactly figured out where it's coming from yet. It's not too big of a concern, but it is a little bit concerning, so I'm going to be investigating that a little as time goes on. Otherwise, functionally, everything is up and running just great. I wound up putting beach pebbles in the bottom. It took 11 bags of beach pebbles. It was quite a lot. I actually woefully underestimated how many I needed. I had to make 2 trips out to get additional beach pebbles. I brought in the large piece of woodwork from the pond outside. I brought in this piece of woodwork to create the inflow. That's not going to stay like that. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with the fountainhead there. I don't exactly know how I'm going to work that out, but the way it's set up now looks okay, but it's not tenable in the long run. It's too susceptible to accidentally being able to just, if the valve gets turned sideways a little, it will literally just pump water right out of my tank and onto the floor. And so I'm going to sort of redesign how I've got that set up. I'm not 100% satisfied with that, but it looks pretty good. And so for now, it can stay that way until I come up with something better. I brought in the plants from the pond outside. This water calla is probably not going to be sustainable long term. It probably is not going to get enough light. You can see I've got my grow light hung there as high as the little hanging apparatus will allow for it, and yet we're barely getting any of the lily in the light. If I turn this light, I've got this light shining on it. If I turn that off, then we get almost no light on that entire water calla. So I don't know how well that's going to survive long run. I also brought in my pickerel rush. Likewise, this is sort of an outdoor high lighting needs kind of plant, so I don't know how well this is going to do. It was already starting to die back for the autumn, and you can see some of the leaves have already yellowed. I already removed a lot of the leaves, but don't know how well that's going to take. But for now, it looks nice. If it dies back, it dies back. I'm not too concerned about it. I also brought in some elephant ears from outside. I brought in that piece of wood from the pond outside, and I also brought in all of the fish from the pond outside. So all of the goldfish that were out there are now in the pond. I added a bunch of guppies. You can see a bunch of guppies swimming around in there. Well, you can almost see a bunch of guppies swimming around in there. If you get down close enough to the water, you can start to see that there's guppies in there swimming around all over the place. And we're probably going to be adding quite a few more guppies to this tank. I really like the addition of the guppies. Somewhere in here there's also a red tiger barb. I had that in my foot tank at the bottom of the waterfall for the longest time, and all of those guppies and the tiger barb have now gone into this tank, and so far so good. They all seem like they're quite happy, and they've got lots and lots of room to swim around. So in addition to the goldfish, I have 4 koi at this point. I have 2. They're all kind of hiding under this log right now because the lights just came on a little while ago this morning. So I've got 2 butterfly koi that are sort of yellow and white, and I have 1 non-butterfly koi, sort of a standard koi, that is also yellow and white. And then I've got 2 black koi in there, which are absolutely amazing. I'm really surprised they're not coming out and swimming around a little more. I can see them all huddled up right under here, underneath of this rock. You can just about make them out down there. So that's where my koi are hiding right now. But in time, they'll get used to me, they'll get used to my voice, and they'll begin to understand that I'm the one that feeds them. And when we come out here and walk into the room, the goldfish and the koi and everything are going to come swimming right up to me. So if we look at the water flowing in, you can see how I've got it on this hollow log. I got the water flowing down through the log. I threw a couple of little pieces of Java fern on there just to see if they would root in. Eventually, whatever I develop and whatever sort of system of water flowing in that we do wind up sticking with, it's going to have plants growing on it. I definitely want to have a log that's going to be sort of up and out of the water. We're going to have plants attached to the log and growing on that. This is my little point of concern down here. this does not ever dry up. It's always wet. I mean, it's wet. It's not damp. It is literally wet to the touch. And sometimes I can feel, you can feel the water dripping off the bottom edge of this. So I don't know exactly what is going on with that. I think it has to do with the way the plastic has been folded on the inside and then cut and then folded over. It may be water sort of weeping up, like the capillary action between two of the folds, and as it just weeps its way up, it drips down here. So if this is all I'm ever going to get, is just this sort of wet spot right here that never really does anything or goes away, I may wind up simply not worrying about it, although I can see there's enough water right here. We just saw a drip run down, so it is a significant amount of water there on this piece of wood. So again, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put a piece of wood across here and then just screw it in really solid and just kind of create a seal across here and see if that doesn't stop the water from flowing down through there. I guess that's going to be my first attempt to get that sealed off. And if that doesn't work, then I guess maybe we can pull these screws out and unfold it and see what we're looking at. The screws here are only 1/4 inch screws, so there's no possible way I could have gone through. That's a 2x10, and so that little 1/4 inch screw did not puncture the pond. That water is weeping up and over somehow, and I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. So there you go. I also brought in my floating water lettuce outside. I threw in some of my water Sprite. I'm going to try to grow out some water Sprite in here, and this is also my water lily from out in the pond. You can see it's got one lily pad on there, and I'm hoping we will actually be able to get lotus flowers on the surface of this pond in here. So I'm really excited. It turned out really, really well. And again, as it grows in and fills in and the plants develop and the fish grow and we maybe add some more fish and get some more guppies swimming around in there, this is going to be just an amazing tank, and I'm really, really excited to watch it grow in and develop. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that, and make sure you ring that bell, do all that good YouTube stuff. That way you won't miss any of the updates on this. You'll get to watch it grow in. And of course, I do a live stream every Friday night and Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you got any questions or having any issues with your tanks and you want some time to chat with me personally, and you want some feedback, or you just got questions or want to hang out on a Friday or Sunday night, make sure you check out those live streams. They're always a lot of fun. So thanks for watching this one. Make sure you subscribe, ring that bell, and I will see you real soon on the next one.